AFMF3 is being referenced in AMD's driver code. We've got lots of other news to talk about today as well, but let's start with this. What would AFMF3 be? Well, first, let's make sure you're up to speed on what is AFMF 1 and 2. AMD's fluid motion frames, AFMF is AMD's driver level frame generation. They were the first to do this. They did it before NVIDIA offered smooth motion frames at the driver level, although they do have that now, supported on 50 series GPUs initially, and then I think expanding to 40 series GPUs now as well on the NVIDIA side. But AMD's AFMF at the driver level frame gen had a version 1, a version 2 with some improvements to it, but AMD's frame generation up to this point is not machine learning based. Now, AMD has promised as part of FSR Redstone, which is promised in the second half of this year, a machine learning based frame generation as one of the features in FSR Redstone. They did not mention a driver-based version of that, but if you would like my speculation on what is AFMF3, that would be my guess. My guess would be it's going to be a driver-level version of the machine learning-based frame generation that will be coming with FSR Redstone. But again, that's an educated guess rather than any kind of confirmation. It doesn't seem like the code here available in the driver. I found this originally posted in the Guru 3D forums, by the way, and then referenced by a bunch of tech sites. Doesn't seem to have anything real specific on what this would be. So that's my best guess. Now we got tons more news to talk about today, but first let's talk about my insane schedule and how I need to handle it efficiently. You guys know I do this YouTube channel, and many of you know I also teach math full-time, have a family, kids. I don't ignore them. I need to take them, transport them to gymnastics, piano lessons, all sorts of stuff. I still try to fit in my hobbies like playing guitar, lifting weights, all sorts of stuff. How to make it all possible? Well, if you need help with your scheduling and efficiency, check out the sponsor of today's video, AKIFLOW. They're the all-in-one solution that brings essential productivity tools into a universal inbox that works as your second brain when your current one isn't enough. While the One Calendar is the perfect set for realistic planning. With time slots, it's easy to organize time block tasks, and lock them to appear across calendars. The Kanban view helps structure each day, week, or month, and the natural language recognition makes easy to plan tasks. While Aki, the AI executive assistant, works proactively to boost productivity, it improves daily habits, creates automations with a simple prompt, automatically organizes tasks into projects, and offers smart nudges to improve how you use your time. Finally, AKIFLOW's daily rituals offer a moment to review daily progress and planning, while productivity stats can reveal trends and insights over time. Check the sponsored link in the video description and/or pinned comment to improve your time management and efficiency and productivity today with AKIFLOW. Now, the other big AMD news is discussing the expansion of ROCm on Windows and Linux. Now, I'm not super into the machine learning AI side of things, more into covering the gaming space, so I'm not going to go into super depth on this, nor am I an expert on it. Link will be in the video description, as are links to all of my stories and sources I'm using today. But the basic idea here is that AMD had promised at Computex that they would be bringing ROCm to Radeon on Windows and Linux in the second half of 2025, and they have now actually delivered on that. So PyTorch, right? Not PyTorch, on Windows and Linux is now available as a public preview. This release builds out the ROCm on Windows and Linux stacks by bringing native PyTorch support to Windows and Linux users running on AMD Radeon 7000 series and 9000 series GPUs and limited Ryzen AI 300 and AI Max APUs. So that's basically that. Again, I will link the source in the video description if that's of interest to you and you want to follow up on that. Again, that's for more people interested in the machine learning AI acceleration space as opposed to the gaming side of things, which, like I said, is my primary focus. Now, with the AMD news out of the way, how about NVIDIA? The next big thing we're expecting from NVIDIA in the gaming space is their 50 Super Series GPUs. Now, originally these had been rumored potentially coming as soon as the end of 2025. Then there were some rumors that it had been delayed, although how do you delay something that hasn't actually been officially announced yet, into the beginning of 2026. But now the latest rumors are saying possibly even second quarter of 2026. I've seen a variety of articles pop up with this information, but they all seem to be sourcing the information from here at benchlife.info. This is machine learning translated, as I believe it's a Chinese language site. Now, what they're saying is that they're guessing most likely between March and May rather than the previously rumored CES 2026. And they're also mentioning that Computex would be coming around June. Now, what are they basing this on? It doesn't seem like they have any information that it's actually coming at that time. It seems to be more the fact that they have add-in card partners. So these would be like, ASUS, MSI, etc., who actually put the coolers on the GPUs and that kind of thing. Those are the add-in card partners. Well, they need to know at least somewhat ahead of time when Super Series cards would be coming in order to get their production lines ready and all of that. And so BenchLife is saying that currently no AIC partner has received case opening notification for the GeForce RTX 50 Super Series. And so that is why they would not expect it to be coming super soon and are now thinking maybe second quarter. But to be clear, none of this is official. The cards themselves have not even been officially announced. Now, there's been other recent news related to the Super Series, which is that Seasonic, a power supply company, has listed RTX 5070 Ti Super and 5070 Super on its PSU calculator, which lists the amount of power required for different graphics cards. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean Seasonic knows something that we don't. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't know something that we don't behind the scenes talking to NVIDIA. Now, the thing is, though, that the power draw targets for these cards have already been leaked by fairly reliable leakers like Copite7Kimi, talking about the TDP targets. Now, one thing that's interesting of note here is that Seasonic has listed the 5070 Super and 5070 Ti Super, but not the 5080 Super, which is also rumored. Now, what does that mean? Potentially nothing. Potentially, Seasonic doesn't know anything that we don't and is just putting stuff on here based on rumors. However, if we assume they do have any sort of information that we don't, them not listing the 5080 Super doesn't mean it isn't coming. It could potentially mean that we would see the 5070 and 5070 Ti Supers first before the 5080 Super, because again, we don't know if all of these Super cards are going to come like all at once on the same day, or if they're going to space them out every couple of weeks or every few months. NVIDIA has done different things with the release cadence of GPUs, including Super Series. Last time around with the 40 Series Super cards, they came all very quickly. And I'm pretty sure those were all kind of like January, February stuff, I think, if I'm remembering right, for those releases. So anyway, we'll have to see what comes of it. Now, in general, kind of the summary of what we know so far, know in air quotes given, like based on rumors from people with reliable-ish histories like Copite7Kimi, is that the 5080 Super is expected to have the same number of CUDA cores as the 5080, but it will have 3 gigabyte GDDR7 modules instead of 2 gigabyte modules, which it gives you a 50% VRAM increase. So the VRAM would increase from 16 to 24. And the TGP target that has been leaked is 415 watts as opposed to 360 watts on the 5080. Now, more VRAM does require more watts, however, maybe not that many more watts, indicating could the 5080 Super also have just a higher power target on the core so that the performance could go up by a few percent just from a more aggressive clock speeds out of the box or something like that. That would be my expectation. So I would guess that the 5080 Super is probably going to be, maybe 5% or less faster based on just increasing the clock speeds a little bit. with a little bit of a higher power target, and then the main draw being the increased VRAM capacity. The 5070 Ti Super is kind of in the same boat, where it's matching the 5070 Ti's CUDA core count, but with the 50% VRAM increase from 16 to 24, and again, a TGP increase from 300 watts to 350 watts. So again, I'd assume something similar with, if there's a performance increase, it's only a few percent based on a slightly more aggressive clocks and power targets. The 5070 Super is, in my opinion, the most interesting card here if it's not priced higher than the 5070, at least MSRP wise, which is that the 5070 Super is supposed to increase the core count from 6144 up to 6400. That's not huge. And a 25 watt TGP increase from 250 to 275. But here, the 50% VRAM increase takes you from 12 to 18, where a lot of people feel like 16 is kind of where you'd want to be on a fairly high mid-range card or better. And so that's going to make a big difference. Now, what a lot of people would like to see is like a 5060 Super that got it up to 12 gigabytes of VRAM, but we have seen no rumors regarding a 5060 Super. Again, that doesn't mean one wouldn't come eventually or couldn't come eventually if the 5060 it doesn't sell well due to its VRAM capacity and all that. But we don't have any leaks on that, and we don't have any official information on any of this. It's all just in leaks and rumor territory. Now, let's move on to the latest Intel leaks. The latest Intel information is that we'll probably be seeing Panther Lake announced on October 9th at an Intel Tech Tour the leak coming from the Intel Tech Tour 2025. We're seeing things where it seems like some journalists and content creators in the tech space are getting a tech tour from Intel and are talking about the 18A node, etc., and can't talk anything about it. There's embargoed information, but within that embargoed information appears to be, it is leaking out, a slide referencing October 9th, 2025, 6 a.m. Pacific time, talking about a Panther Lake announcement here. So that's what we have on that. Now, what do we know about Panther Lake so far? Well, Panther Lake is interesting in that it does feature Intel's 18A node, but in my opinion, less interesting for me because it's a laptop GPU. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will link this WCCF Tech article that has kind of a roundup on anything we have known or leaked so far about Panther Lake. In general, again, sources will be in the video description. Now, I thought this was interesting. For those of you following the monitor space, well, a lot of the PC space has been like small incremental gains for CPUs and GPUs, not a lot of price to performance increase. The monitor space has actually been extremely exciting because OLED monitors have been pushing down in price categories. They started out as, $1,000 plus ultra high-end stuff. But now we're starting to get, 1440p monitors with like the step down specs, but still OLED, coming in at way lower prices. This article here is talking about a new 27-inch QHD, so 1440p QD OLED monitor from MSI coming in at $322, which seems almost too good to be true. But that is that. I haven't seen reviews on it yet or anything. But that's kind of the exciting thing right now in the PC space, in my opinion, is the monitor tech getting OLED pushed down. And even if you're not interested in OLED, that kind of drives down the pricing on a lot of specs that used to cost, a certain amount for like IPS panels and things like that, with the OLED competition in those price points also driving down prices on those. So pretty interesting stuff. Now, just a little bit of a follow-up that I've mentioned in a number of videos that ASRock had been having reports of frying 9800X 3D CPUs on certain motherboards. It looked like, I think they're 800 series motherboards, and that there had been various BIOS updates promising improvements, or at least there had been BIOS updates that probably offer improvements. So I'm just mentioning there is another ASRock BIOS update now for a lot of their boards with 3.50. And they don't really mention anything about it other than update AGISA to combo AM5 1.2.0.3 dot 3G. But anyway, so hopefully one of these has solved the problem, but I've been trying to keep my eye out for a definitive, statement that on this particular BIOS revision, you do not need to worry about the X3D CPUs on ASRock motherboards. And I haven't seen anything that just flat out confirms that. So I'm just going to keep updating you guys that if you have an ASRock motherboard, especially if you're on an X3D CPU, especially the 9800 X3D, and especially on one of the newer ASRock boards, like the 800 series boards, make sure you're getting on those latest BIOS updates to hopefully not fry your your CPU there. Now, ASUS, speaking of like long-term issues getting fixes, ASUS has rolled out a firmware update for 2023 ROG laptops that have reported stuttering issues. I've talked about this. There's been a lot of other creators talking about this, that there were a bunch of reports of stuttering issues on certain ROG laptops. And they're talking about an update that should hopefully be helping with that, but I do not have confirmation if that has actually solved all of the issues, but it claims to have improved that by ASUS themselves making that claim. So anyway, there's that information for you. ASUS, in other news, has also offered a chance to win an RTX 50 ROG Astral GPU signed by Jensen Huang himself for designing a card for them. Now, the videocards.com article where I found this is mentioning that nothing seems to stop you from just having AI generate your design for you to enter the competition. So there's that. Anyway, I'll link this in the along with everything else in the video description if you're interested in a chance to win. Now, in other like GPU design, maybe some inspiration. There are some new GPU designs being announced and released. We're seeing MSI showing off a 5070 Ti with a hidden 16-pin connector underneath a removable backplate. If I remember correctly, there's been other brands already doing this, so it seems like MSI just kind of jumping onto that idea where we can hide the connector underneath a removable backplate. Might be interesting for some builds. MSI is also preparing a black version for their 5060 and 5070 Ti Ventus cards. And also, MSI is set to expand the MLG Dragon Princess series to RTX 5070 and 5060 Ti versions. So if you're interested more in this kind of Dragon Princess anime theme kind of card, then there's that information. And Palette is launching a ITX version for their RTX 5050 Storm X. This is a single fan 170 millimeter ITX design. There we go. I can speak. I really feel like the 5050, if it had been able to be slot powered rather than requiring the power connector, this could have been interesting, but it's not. So anyway, but if still for small form factor designs, there you go. Now, I thought this was interesting. Over at Phoronix, they're reporting that a Linux driver developer at Valve has just continued to update with patches for AMD's GCN 1.0 GPUs. That's Radeon HD 7000 series GPUs. Those are extremely old. I think I had one a long time ago, but back when I was I built my own computers, but was much less knowledgeable on the topic. But I'm pretty sure that I may have had an HD 7000 series card for a little while there. And anyway, but just interesting that the Linux drivers getting updated for these cards despite their age. The specific fix seems to be a few minor patches to address some SI issues, like when a 4K 60Hz display is connected to Tahiti or Pitcairn, there's a slight flickering near the bottom of the display. Anyway, so I just think it's cool that one of Valve's developers is still making patches like that. That is awesome. Now, speaking of games, getting support from basically just one, not really rogue dev, that's probably the wrong word for it, but just one developer just doing their own thing, and it's awesome. Baldur's Gate 3 on the Steam Deck now has a Steam Deck native version because of one Mad Lad developer there working for Larian. So we've got this. So, well, hello, friends of Baldur's Gate 3. We are back with another hotfix offering up several bug fixes and addressing some rather annoying instances of crashing on Xbox. But what's more, hotfix number 34 brings a special update to those of you playing on Steam Deck. Baldur's Gate 3 now features a native Steam Deck build. This means the game can now be run natively on the platform, resulting in a more stable frame rate, lower loading times, and smoother gameplay. This is not just good news for Steam Deck users either. The work the team has put into this build also means that everyone will get to enjoy overall improvements to the way game models are streamed on all platforms, which should reduce frame rate spikes in busy areas such as Lower City in Act 3. By the way, Lower City in Act 3 is one of the most unperformant areas of Baldur's Gate 3, so that is really cool. Saying if you're playing on deck, there are a couple of things to note once you've installed the update, which you can check out. They have a guide. Anyway, I'm going to, like I said, link all my sources in the video description. I think this is really cool because I was reading into this. It seems like there was just one developer at Larian that really wanted this to happen and had done some work on it. And then they were like, you know what, that's cool. Let's actually get this out and get this be official. So I think other people did probably join in on getting it up and running. But based on what it seems like one guy really wanted to get done. And I have not tested this for myself yet, but I did notice over on the Steam Deck subreddit, people mentioning that their performance was better, especially in places like Lower City Act 3, which I think is just awesome. But looks like other people may have increased performance there as well. So great, awesome. Anyway, let's continue with a few other quick stories here. So ASUS ROG Xbox Ally X is officially priced at $1,000. Sorry, $999, and the ROG Xbox Ally Non-X version at $599. That's a lot of money. So, especially considering that this Windows front end that is, like a handheld focused version that I think seems to kind of get rid of some of the bloat of Windows desktop running in the background, could improve some, memory situation and stuff like that. There's no reason that is exclusive to these particular handhelds. So their price premium seems a little bit questionable to me. Not that I think that they're probably not going to be good handhelds, but I don't know, guys. Steam Deck's available for a lot less money. I know it has less performance, and it's not Windows, so I know there's a place for this. But even other Windows handhelds, anyway. But just throwing it out there, pricing is available for this. I'm mostly interested in just how this whole Xbox, Windows, PC merger seems to continue forward. Because the whole video game industry is kind of in an interesting place right now. Speaking of which, we have, for example, video game spending is, at least according to the Entertainment Software Association and posted here on Fool.com, has kind of stagnated since 2019. We have not really seen growth in the industry, whereas previously we had seen a lot of growth, and then, it just kind of seems to have flatlined here. So I don't know. And Microsoft not doing super well with their Xbox consoles this generation. What's going on with that? We've seen at the same time, the amount of video games, just the sheer number of games being released, for example, on Steam, has apparently increased by 93% from 2020 to 2024, where video game spending has been pretty flat. So you've got tons more games being released, but spending's flat. Is profitability there? I know some companies are making tons of money hand over fist with live service stuff, but you just have to wonder if the industry is in a weird place and is about to have some kind of big shift. There's just a lot of feelings on that, and I'm really wondering what the next console generation is going to bring, and is it going to flop? How long is the cross-gen period going to be? Or is the AI stuff that'll be adopted with the next generation really going to move things? I don't know, guys, but there's just a lot of weirdness happening right now with tech prices in the video game industry. And on that note, we'll end with another huge announcement, which is that Electronic Arts, EA, has announced an agreement to be acquired privately by PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners for $55 billion. So this is absolutely huge. So according to our videocards.com article on this topic, they're saying that this is at least described as the largest all-cash sponsor take-private deal in history. And of note, it looks like the consortium taking ownership here is led by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. That's what that PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners actually are. Anyway, this is just a huge move in the industry since EA is such a big publisher. But anyway, just throwing it out there for you guys as part of the news today. Hopefully you guys found today's news useful and or interesting. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.